Welcome to my ranking of every wooden coaster that I've ridden. At first I just wanted to rank my top 15 wooden coasters, but then Northern Rides wanted me to rank every single wooden coaster that I've done. In total, I've ridden 35 different wooden coasters, though I grouped some of the dueling wooden coasters together for this list if both sides are similar enough, so this list has 33 spots. While the top half of this list only consists of good rides, the bottom half is mostly made up of really bad rides, so there'll be a lot of ranting about roughness in this video. But that out of the way, let's begin. At number 33 is the worst wooden coaster that I've ever ridden, Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure. The layout itself might be good, but when I rode it, it was insanely rough. After a smooth first drop, the entire rest of the layout was horrible. The train was jackhammering all the time at a high rate, so you had no chance to enjoy any of the ride's forces. This ride was a one and done. It needs some form of steel retrack to become good. And at number 32 is Mighty Canadian Minebuster, one of 3 wooden coasters at Canada's Wonderland. This is another ride that purely consists out of painful jackhammering, though at least it isn't as long as Shivering Timbers. It certainly deserves the nickname as Spinebuster. I don't got anything else to say about this thing, it's just one of many bad woodies out there. Sitting at number 31 is the Red Racer at Kings Island. This is one dueling coaster that I didn't group together, because the red side was just that much worse than the blue side. It might have some airtime here and there, but it's once again a painful jackhammerer, making it another one and done. The last of the 4 actually horrendous woodies that I've done is the ride at number 30, Blue Streak at Cedar Point. While this ride isn't that big, it still was very rough and quite painful during my ride. One thing that all rides that I mentioned so far have in common are their PTC trains, which I don't really like, as they don't lower a ride's roughness one bit, and the restraints come down quite a bit due to the jackhammering. Now for some less horrible woodies. Spots 29 to 27 go to the family wooden coasters at Michigan's Adventure, Kings Island, and Canada's Wonderland. These rides are all quite similar, and no one really cares about these things anyways, so let's just move on. Coming in at number 26 is Wildebeest, the last of the 3 woodies at Canada's Wonderland. While this ride also suffers from severe jackhammering, it wasn't too bad as I rode it in the front row, so I actually could enjoy the ride to some extent. The layout is nothing crazy though, so it's nothing overly interesting. Movie Park's Bandit takes the 25th spot. I only really remember my 2022 ride on Bandit, but it was actually running very smooth during that ride. However, Bandit doesn't provide any strong forces, so it's tamer than most mine trains. If it actually runs rougher on my next ride, then it could easily drop down on this list. At number 24 is Comet, the family wooden coaster at Waldameer. This is a really old ride, but it was pretty smooth when I rode it, and it had some fun pops of airtime. It's nothing crazy, but it's also not bad, and for such a classic, it's a solid ride. At number 23 is Loup-Garou, the Vekoma wooden coaster at Walibi, Belgium. So this is another really bumpy ride, but for the most part the couch-like seats keep the ride from hurting you there. However, the lap bar does destroy your legs, which is a shame, as the layout of the ride is actually quite good and fast paced. If this ride got Timberliner trains, it would likely be a lot better, but an RMC treatment is definitely the best option here. At number 22 is the blue side of Kings Island's Racer. Unlike the red side, the blue side could retract in many sections not too long before I rode it, so it was bearable, and I could enjoy the ride's decent airtime moments. But as the layout of Racer isn't exactly mind-blowing, it just doesn't belong any higher on this list. Sitting at number 21 is Wolverine Wildcat at Michigan's Adventure. This is the only wooden coaster by Din that I have ridden, so I didn't expect much. But it wasn't even that bad. The ride had some decent airtime and laterals, and the roughness wasn't unbearable, though it still could have been a lot smoother. Starting off the top 20 is Rutschebahn at Backen. This classic ride sadly doesn't have a brakeman anymore, so the new trains get slowed down by trim brakes. This sadly causes the ride to run very slow, and the new trains are also not that comfortable. However, the ride does have two really fun airtime moments on the double downs, and the ride also runs smooth enough. At number 19 is Vuo Restaurata, the old wooden coaster at Linnanmäki. This ride actually has the exact same layout as Rutschebahn at Bakken, but this coaster still has a brakeman, so does run quite a bit faster than its Danish counterpart. Despite that, the forces weren't overly different from Rutschebahn, although I didn't ride it in the front row, because it's supposed to have one really strong pop of airtime there. Sitting at number 18 is Tomahawk at PortAventura. This family wooden coaster is integrated into the structure of Stampeder, so it's hard to tell which part of the track actually belongs to which ride. And while Tomahawk isn't that fast or long, it runs quite smooth and features some fun lateral-filled turns. It's a simple ride, but it's quite fun. At number 17 is Mammut at Tripsdrill. There's really just two interesting things about Mammut: the well-themed pre-show and the first drop. In the back row, that first drop is actually insane. In fact, that first drop might be among my top 5 favorite wooden coaster drops. However, the rest of the ride doesn't do a whole lot. It's a fairly long ride and it's smooth, but it's also a one-trick pony. At number 16 is Stampeder, the dueling wooden coaster at PortAventura. The dueling aspect of this ride is amazing, and there is some good airtime and fun laterals throughout the long layout. As long as you don't sit towards the back of the train, Stampeder is also not that rough, making this a quite enjoyable ride. Kicking off the top 15 is Giant Dipper at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. And to be honest, this spot is mere speculation. The one ride I had on this ride was over 6 years ago, so I don't remember much. However, the one thing I do remember is having a lot of fun, so I guess I can put it somewhere around here in my ranking, but I'd need to ride it again to truly tell. Sitting at number 14 is Falken, the SNS wooden coaster at Farup Sommerland. This is a rather small wooden coaster, and it also is somewhat short, but it does pack quite a punch, especially in the back row. It delivers several moments of strong and sustained floater airtime, and the first drop in the back row actually offers great ejector airtime. While it is a bit rough, it still is completely bearable, so this is a really fun ride overall. At number 13 sits the first GCI on this list, Heidi the Ride at Plopsaland de Pan. This ride is among the smoothest wooden coasters I've ridden, and it also runs smoother than 95% of steel coasters. The layout features a lot of floater airtime pops, which are really fun, although none of the elements is really extreme. Sitting at number 12 is Wodan, the large GCI wooden coaster at Europa Park. On paper, this is an elite coaster. The ride has great theming, impressive stats, and really good pacing. However, there is nothing else to it. Especially during the first half of the ride, there is just not that much going on despite the high speed of the train, which really is a shame for such a large wooden coaster. Luckily, the ride does get quite a bit better in the second half, where the ride actually has some good GCI elements. But as the ride feels quite short, I've always been a bit underwhelmed by it, and it also always caused a headache. And at number 11 is another GCI, Thunderbird at Powerland. While this also isn't an overly extreme ride, it does have pretty good pacing, some fun airtime moments, and some fantastic laterals. This is also another super smooth wooden coaster, and while it isn't super long, it does pack quite a lot into its compact layout, so I think this is a very solid woody. And we've made it to the top 10. At number 10 is Rutschebahn at Tivoli Gardens, which is another classic coaster with a brakeman. From what I remember, this ride can have pretty wide laterals and scary airtime if the brakeman allows for a fast ride, but I certainly need to ride it again. It sadly was closed during my last visit to Tivoli, and with a re-ride this coaster could shoot up in my ranking. Coming in at number 9 is Twister at Grünalund. This small-scale gravity group woody does pack in some great forces if you're sitting in the back row. There are several quite punchy drops throughout the layout, and there also are some fun laterals here and there. It is a little bumpy, but for this ride it doesn't really matter as you're not going very fast. Despite the small size of Twister, the ride time is actually fairly long, making this a super fun attraction. And now we are starting to move into elite wooden coaster territories. At number 8 is Joris and the Drake at Efteling, my favorite dueling coaster out there. I didn't expect that much from this average sized GCI, but it was a big surprise. No matter if you're in the front or in the back, and no matter which side of the ride you're on, Joris is gonna be a wild experience. From the first drop until the brake run, there are funky airtime pops and aggressive laterals throughout the entire layout. On top of that, Joris is also pretty smooth, and I really want to get more rides on this thing. At number 7 sits Mystic Timbers, the GCI wooden coaster at Kings Island. This is another really smooth woody, and it has a super fun layout. Especially the first half of this ride is super fast paced. There are a lot of airtime pops and some really fun lateral jolts, certainly outshining every single ride that has been on this list so far. However, the second half of Mystic Timbers is not that powerful anymore, but the iconic shed at the end is a good theming aspect. Judging from my 3 rides, this isn't the world-class woody that some people make it out to be, but it's super fun nonetheless. At the 6th spot is the Beast at Kings Island, the longest wooden coaster in the world. Now this coaster is a bit interesting. After the first lift hill, the ride mainly consists out of odd straight tracks and turns, but in this section the ride did feel like a journey, as you are far away from the rest of the park. After the second lift hill, the train flies through a double helix, which is one of the wildest coaster elements that I've experienced so far, and this is one element where I actually like the roughness, because the Beast is a bit bumpy here and there. Overall, this is a fantastic coaster, and I really want to get a night ride on this thing. We are now at the top 5, and at number 5 is Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldameer. This Gravity Group wooden coaster is fantastic, as it's a terrain coaster that's filled with many great airtime moments. While it does slow down a little bit during a few spots, there also are some really fast-paced sections during the layout. The highway bridge is a super cool aspect of this ride, and I'd love to ride this thing again. Coming in at number 4 is Colossus, the massive Intamin prefab at Heide Park. This super smooth ride is this high up only because of its start. The first drop, but especially the first 2 camelbacks, are some insane elements that can offer some insane ejector airtime if the trims don't hit too hard, and this section of the ride is definitely world class. However, after the fun turnaround, the rest of the coaster only has some weak floater airtime moments and just a few laterals that aren't that interesting overall. The epic theming structure at the end is amazing though, and because of the great first half I really like this coaster. Sitting at number 3 is Boulder, the Intamin prefab at Leesburg. Now this is one great airtime machine. Every single hill on this ride has fantastic airtime, ranging from strong floater to solid ejector airtime. On top of that, the first drop on this ride feels different from most other drops, as the train dives down a turn to reach the steepest point of the drop. While the turns between the airtime hills don't do a whole lot, the long and airtime-filled layout together with the perfect smoothness make this an excellent ride. And I haven't even gotten a front row ride yet. Coming in at number 2 is Troy, the insane GCI wooden coaster at Toverland. This ride is a powerhouse. The long layout is non-stop powerful thanks to this coaster's flawless pacing, and there is not a single dead spot during the layout. There are strong and sustained laterals everywhere, and you also got some fun airtime pops. When I rode Troy, it had a perfect woody rattle, so it wasn't butter smooth, but also not rough at all. Up until summer 2021, this was my favorite wooden coaster, but it has been dethroned by one mad ride. My favorite wooden coaster at the moment is none other than the AMC Wildfire at Kolmården. This is easily the best wooden coaster I've done, and one of my all-time favorite rides overall. The first half of this ride is packed with world-class elements, which deliver very strong airtime, crazy hang time, and breathtaking views due to the ride's location. And while the second half isn't as wild as the first, that doesn't make this ride much less insane. As this isn't an iBox track hybrid coaster like most other AMCs, it has developed a woody rattle, but that does not take away from the experience. As a whole, this will probably remain my favorite wooden coaster for a long time, and I can only see very few wooden coasters being superior. And that was my ranking of every single wooden coaster that I've ridden. What are your favorite wooden coasters? Thanks for watching. Bye.